Hey guys, how's everybody doing? I'm back today for another Vinyl Finds video. This is a bit of a mix of some online purchases, record store finds, and the first one is actually I got a few records from a co-worker who I guess doesn't listen to vinyl anymore, so he gave me some of his stuff, and a lot of it was duplicates of classic rock that I already had, so I passed those along to my brother-in-law. Things like the first couple of Van Halen albums, a couple of Rush albums, AC/DC, Supertramp, that sort of thing. But there was a few in there that I saved for myself. And the best of the bunch, in my opinion, for me anyway, was definitely this album here. And it's this Motown compilation called 2020. And what this is 20 number one hits, marking, I guess, Motown's 20th anniversary back, I guess, at the beginning of the 80s. And yeah, I have quite a bit of Motown in my collection, and there's some really great stuff on here. The best stuff on here in terms of what I like is some Diana Ross and the Supremes. There's one Supremes track, Someday We'll Be Together, which is credited to Diana Ross and the Supremes, rather than just the Supremes. That's when they changed the name, which caused a little bit of controversy amongst some of the other ladies in the band. And there's a few Jackson 5 tracks on here. There's 3 killer Marvin Gaye songs, What's Going On, Let's Get It On, and this marathon epic that I never heard before called Got to Give It Up. There's a few Stevie Wonder tracks on here, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. So some really great stuff. Like, this is an excellent compilation to put on, and the only songs that I'm not that crazy about are on side 4, a couple of Commodore's ballads. I mean, I like the Commodores, but these 2 ballads, they're not really for me. But this was great to get this from my friend at work. And the next one was next couple, I think, are online purchases. Leonard Cohen, Songs of Love and Hate. So this is Leonard Cohen's 3rd album. And I got this on Amazon actually for quite a good price, for $13 Canadian plus shipping, which was pretty good for brand new. And so his 3rd album, and I guess the best known songs off of here are Avalanche and Famous Blue Raincoat. Always looking for Leonard Cohen. Then I got this Kinks compilation, The Best of the Kinks, 1964 to 1970. It's a single disc comp. I already have a double Kinks comp, but there was a couple of songs on here that I didn't have on the other one, and I like the idea of having everything on one record. And I was a little worried that they were going to jam too many songs on here at first, because there is 15 tracks on here. 9 on side 1, which are in mono, and 6 on side 2, which are in stereo. And it goes in chronological order, and there was a couple of tracks on here that I didn't have on the other comp, which one is Mr. Pleasant, and the other one, what was the other one? It was See My Friends. So 2 really amazing Kinks songs that I absolutely needed. And the other thing that made me want to get this is the cover. I really love this cover. And it looks way better than the other comp that I have, which is a 20-song double record. But just look at the cover of that. I think it looks amazing, and definitely has the Kinks' most essential stuff from their best period. The next few are record store finds, and on a trip that I went probably about 3 weeks ago, and the find of the day for me anyway was this one, Donovan. And initially I thought this was Sunshine Superman. Then when I got home, I looked at it more closely, and I thought it was Sunshine Superman in concert. So I thought it was the songs from that album live. And actually what it is, it's a twofer album set. The first record is the studio version of Sunshine Superman, and the second record is a live album called In Concert. So I got the best of both worlds here, and Sunshine Superman, I just love that. Like, that's some of my favorite Donovan, and really, really happy to get this. And then an album that I had on CD back in the 80s, and I saw once on vinyl a few years ago for, I think it was about 25 bucks. Just hold on a sec. Sorry about that, guys. Just had to answer my phone there. So an album that I had back in the 80s on CD that I really liked. And I saw it, like I said, a few years ago about for 25 bucks, passed on it, and then never saw it since until most recently, and that's The Cult, Sonic Temple. I believe this was The Cult's fourth album. I know it was the album after Electric, and has the well-known song on here is Firewoman, but also Edie, Ciao Baby, and Sweet Soul Sister, I believe those were also singles as well. So this is a great album. I love this. I think this was the Cult's truly last great album, in my opinion. They had some good ones after that, but that was a fantastic album. And then a record that I've, believe it or not, never owned ever in any form. I might have had a download at once, but it certainly wasn't something that I was that familiar with. But was definitely not on the active lookout out there in the wild, but if I came across it, I'd get it. And it's the Sex Pistols, Never Mind the Bollocks. Yeah, I get not much do you need to say about this one here. And then I guess one thing that I kind of hate is a bit of a pet peeve is you know, when artists pass away and then all of a sudden like their vinyl goes up in prices. And I was looking for this artist you know, for quite some time, and I only had one album by him. That's Prince. I've always been a casual fan. I've had his a few compilations on CD of his hits, and that's mainly the stuff that I knew. I then found a few years ago, several years ago while he was still living, Purple Rain at Value Village, which is I guess a charity shop or bargain shop, whatever you want to call it, for a couple of bucks, and that was great. But then never seen any of his stuff for quite a while, and whenever you saw it, it was hugely expensive. So the album, I guess, that followed, I believe it was the album that followed Purple Rain, Around the World in a Day. I believe that's what this is called. I don't see it written anywhere, but I think that's what this album is. And this is the album with the big hit Raspberry Beret. And so I saw this, I was going for, I think it was 18 bucks that I paid for this. And yeah, I guess Prince stuff doesn't come cheap ever since his passing, which is unfortunate. Then a band that I've shown a few times in my videos, I've shown some solo Paul Weller, and I've shown some Jam. And this is the band that Paul Weller formed after the Jam broke up, the Style Council. And this is a collection of their singles called The Singular Adventures of the Style Council. And I was really happy to get this. I've got a couple other Style Council albums. I don't like them as much as I like the Jam or solo Weller, but there's some really good stuff here. They put out some really great singles, I think. My Ever Changing Moods, Shout to the Top. I mean, this was still a really good band. And I needed one remaining album to complete my collection of the Moody Blues Classic 7 albums, which start with Days of Future Past to The Seventh Sojourn. And the one album that I needed was this album here. What's it called? Every Good Boy Deserves Favor. What the heck is going on here? Sorry, I just had something pop up on the screen there. Every Good Boy Deserves Favor, which is the Moody Blues, I guess, 6th album in that run of the Classic 7 albums. And yeah, so the gatefold here. I've listened to this a few times, and truth be told, it's probably my least favorite of the classic 7, but it's still a really good album, but my least favorite of that period. But I was happy to get it to complete the collection of those 7 albums. And anytime I find Eric Clapton, you know, for relatively cheap, I'll pick it up. So saw this for $5. This is No Reason to Cry, one of his 70s albums, kind of laid back Clapton. It's all right. It's decent. You know, not one of his best, but it's still pretty good. And seeing some videos of people showing some power pop and mentioning this band, the Raspberries, which I didn't really know the Raspberries, but I knew Eric Carmen from, I guess it's the Dirty Dancing soundtrack. He had that song Hungry Eyes, and then found out later on he was actually in a decent band called the Raspberries, and got this album, which is Fresh Raspberries. I don't know if this is their 3rd or 4th album, and you know, look at that hideous cover with those suits on there, but the music within is definitely much better, so I was really happy to get this. Some really, really good power pop. We'll definitely be on the lookout for more. And then a few more online purchases. I think most of you may know the band The Happy Mondays, which was a Manchester band that was popular back in the, I think, late 80s and early 90s. When that band broke up, Sean Ryder from that band formed this band, Black Grape, and this was Black Grape's first album. It's Great When You're Straight, Yeah, which was a very successful album for Black Grape and Sean Ryder. It had the songs In the Name of the Father and Reverend Black Grape. I saw this band live when they came for their second album, and they were quite good. I mean, I didn't like them as good as the Monday. I didn't like them as much as the Mondays, but this is still a pretty good band. This is back from the early 90s. And a new release from the Arctic Monkeys, and this is called Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino. Quite a bit different from the Arctic Monkeys' previous stuff, and very different from their last album, AM. It's not getting that many good reviews from some who are sort of expecting an AM Part 2 from the Arctic Monkeys, but I'm really enjoying it quite a bit. It's quite a bit more down-tempo, low-key, a lot more, I guess, piano or keyboards on this, and feels much more like an Alex Turner solo album than it does an Arctic Monkeys album, and kind of leans more towards Alex Turner's other band, The Last Shadow Puppets. Having said that, I think if you're a fan of Alex Turner and the Arctic Monkeys, that you may like this, but definitely listen to some clips before taking the plunge on it. And then a band from Iceland, Sigur Rós. This is their album. It's a double EP called, and I'm gonna pronounce this wrong, Hvarf and Heim. Hvarf is a 5-song EP of studio tracks that were previously unreleased. And a couple of tracks from their first album that is not that well known, called Vaughn. They did redid a couple of tracks from that album and made them much better, in my opinion. And then the second part of this EP is Heim, H-E-I-M, which is a 6-song live album with, you wouldn't really be able to tell that it's live because there's very little crowd noise, if any at all. So this is the Hvarf side, and this is the Heim side. So 6 songs, acoustic instruments on the live album, and just beautiful, beautiful soundscapes and dreamy, you know, post-rock and very chilled out. Of course, the lead singer Jonesy sings in a made-up language, I suppose. I think some people thought it was in Icelandic, but I forget what he calls it, but it's definitely a made-up kind of language. And then I've got some Isaac Hayes in my collection. I think 3 of his studio albums, the Shaft soundtrack, Joy, and one other one. And I was looking for a compilation, and most compilations of the Isaac Hayes catalog feature edited versions of his songs, and a lot of his songs on some of his studio albums are quite long jams, and I wanted to either get those proper studio albums or find a compilation that had those songs in their extended lengths, and so I was able to find this on Amazon, which is called The Man, The Ultimate Isaac Hayes, 1969 to 77, which definitely captures Isaac Hayes, his best period. And there's some really long jams on here, like Walk On By, 12 minutes. By the time I get to Phoenix, 18 minutes. It's just amazing. They sound great. You would definitely be cheated if you just, the shortened edited single versions are good, but these long jams are just amazing. Isaac Hayes, wonderful soul artist. And last but not least, I've been listening to a lot of Yes lately, and I shown that recently, Yes's Fragile album on my contest entry for Steve Syke and the Valleys, and I finally picked up Yes's first album, simply entitled Yes. And this is Yes before Rick Wakeman and Steve Howe joined the band. It has Tony Kaye and Peter Banks on keyboards and guitar, and you still have, or you have the core here of John Anderson on vocals, Chris Squire, the amazing bass player, and Bill Bruford, the amazing drummer. So this was well worth it. This is a little bit more kind of psych rock than it is prog rock, and they do the cover of a Byrds track on here. I See You is the cover song they do, and they do a Lennon and McCartney Every Little Thing, which I'm not really familiar with the Beatles version of that. So yeah, Yes's first album. Okay guys, thanks a lot for watching, and I'd appreciate any comments.